Evening, members. It's 6:30, and welcome to the Environment and Infrastructure Committee meeting. It's our first meeting of the municipal year. You believe it, in September. Just go through a few protocols at the beginning. Fire evacuation procedure for the evening's meeting. There are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening. Therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. The fire exit is located at the side of this room. Exit through the reception and meet in the War Memorial Park. This meeting is being webcast. Live on the internet will be available to view on YouTube after the meeting. Microphones. Please can remind members and officers that in order to be heard clearly within the room by those present and those on the webcast, that you must directly speak into the microphone. The microphone stem can be moved so that it's close to your mouth as possible. And please turn your mobile phones off or on silent. Thank you. Apologies for absence and substitutions. We have Councillor Miller is replaced by Councillor Perry. I don't think there's no other substitutions, so we're all good. Declarations of interest, is there any? No, all good. Not aware of any urgent items. Yep, good. So first, appointment of Vice Chair. Are there any nominations? Kate?
Thank you, Chair. Could I propose Councillor Chapman?
Sure. Is there any other nominations? No, Councillor Chapman is elected then.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think you might have to move chairs. Oh, we wait till the next meeting. Fair enough. Okie dokie. So we go on to minutes of the last, well, not the last meeting, the disbanded Economic Planning and Housing Committee meeting held on the 29th of February. So we've only got 5 members that are on this particular committee that were on the previous committee. Can any of those 5 members vouch that these are true record? Joe, thank you. And on myself as well, so that's cool, yeah. Okay, yeah, I think we're all happy, so excellent. So we come on to item 6, draft electric vehicle charging strategy, and Mark Lambert is going to give us a quick chat about it. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Andy, the portfolio, is going to give us a quick brief.
Cool. Thank you very much. Right, good evening. Thank you, committee, for inviting me along this evening. I think regardless of where we sit in the council chamber, I hope we all agree that in order to tackle the climate emergency that we face, we need to be more sustainable in how we travel. Ideally, we will walk or cycle, but obviously there are occasions where that's the distances are too long, so we look to public transport. So there is a whole, I'm sure, as we all know, there is a transport hierarchy, and that's what it encourages us to do. However, in a borough the size of ours and with a large rural area, I think we have to be realistic and accept that we're not going to get away from car usage. We're not going to stop using our private vehicles anytime soon. So the question becomes, how do we make sure that those car journeys are as sustainable as possible? And based on current technology, electric vehicles seem to be the way forward. And we should be trying to migrate, as a borough, encouraging our residents to migrate from petrol and diesel powered vehicles to electric vehicles. And that's what the document in front of us this evening is all about. It's our first ever EV strategy as a borough council. And it outlines the role that we as a borough council can play in helping our residents to switch to EVs, thereby supporting our efforts to tackle our climate emergency. I'll make a few very brief points about the document itself. I'm sure you've already picked up a lot of these as you've been scrutinising it. Clearly an important part of our EV strategy is installing chargers in residential areas on street. We've committed the funding to do that. We're ready to do that, but unfortunately we can't do it without the permission of Hampshire County Council, as this involves putting chargers on highway land. Hampshire County Council need to give us a green light. Unfortunately, they are not being quite as speedy as we would like them to be. So we've got to be mindful of that constraint. Secondly, and I've already had a conversation about this evening, I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that converting standard parking bays into EV charging bays is likely to raise some concerns and encounter some resistance, particularly in areas where there's already a shortage of conventional car parking spaces. So it's important that we look at where demand is before we install EV parking bays, and also that we consult with residents and with you as ward members before we do that. The strategy is based on the assumption, which I fully support, that the Borough Council has an important role in helping residents to transition to electric vehicles, but we can't do it on our own. It can't just be us. There's a role for the private sector as well, and you'll see part of the strategy is about encouraging private investors to come in and support our EV charging infrastructure. And then finally, as I mentioned right at the start, this is our first ever EV strategy. We haven't done this before. We envisage this being a living document that will evolve over time as we learn more about EV installation and as the industry itself matures. So thank you again for inviting me this evening. Thank you for taking the time to review the strategy, and also a huge thanks to Mark, Emma and the broader officer team for drafting this. It's been a huge piece of work, and I look forward to hearing your comments and suggestions for improvements in the next few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, for that. Mark, do you want to give us some background to the paper, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Konechko, for that introduction. Really, just to emphasise what the Councillors Konechko said so far, the strategy is there to guide where and how we roll out our chargers at the moment. We've been successful so far in introducing charge points in a number of locations around the town. We've got a charging hub in Feathers Yard in the town centre, plus a number of other facilities scattered around the town itself. We've also now got chargers in Bramley, Kingsclear, Overton and Whitchurch, and we're looking to roll out chargers in a number of our community centres as well. Focused at present on Hatchwarren Community Centre and looking at Oakridge Hall for all, as well as some others coming forwards. And there's a capital programme that sits behind that. Just to pick up on the point around Hampshire and their on-street charging work, they have got a funding bid in at the moment with government to secure £6 million of funding to support on-street chargers across the county. So we'll be making sure that we push hard to make sure that some of those fall within the borough to support our residents. Councillor Konechko referred to some commercial operators. We're working with an operator at the leisure park to bring something forward there, which we hope should be delivered next year. We're in close liaison with colleagues in that respect. The recommendation to members is to provide comments to the portfolio holder, such that we can consider those with Councillor Konechko before we consult later in the year. That's what I want to say.
Thank you, Mark. Has the committee got any questions for Mark and Emma? Or do you want to go straight into comments? Or Joe?
The right one. Good evening, everybody. There is some reference in the action plan about network and connecting to network. And just give you an example of something that has happened in Tadley, which had one of the first EVs next door to the council office. We've got two. They're not rapid chargers, they're the old-fashioned ones because they were put in immediately. But we did try and put a rapid charger in, and we had a company in Basingstoke who were interested in doing it on a commercial front. But they couldn't actually do it because commercially it wasn't viable because it was too far from the nearest substation. And they won't do it if it's not commercially viable, of course. So you've now got an issue. We also tried to get county to look at providing EV chargers, a block of flats, where a gentleman has bought his house from the Housing Association years ago, lives on the top floor, given an electric vehicle from work, and could not charge it at home because the Housing Association wouldn't let us put forward their land for an EV charger. So I'm just trying to point out that this thing is not going to be as simple as it looks like, and that, yes, we do need to work with all our other authorities, housing associations, parish and town councils, to see whether we can deliver things easily. And the other issue I have is that some of the community centres, because they have problems with people parking on their site and taking all their car parking, is they suddenly are putting barriers to the car parks, which means that people can't just drive in at any time of day or night, which might be something that we also need to look at. Sorry to be negative. And my other question is really negative. Everybody is thinking that hydrogen might be the next thing. Are we going to spend a lot of money on EVs to find that, in fact, what people will use is hydrogen?
Just to pick up on your first point, Councillor Sliman, I think each site has its constraints and its issues to consider, which is a point that we've grappled with every installation, that they're never quite as easy as they seem when you start the process. So Emma's been working hard to resolve those issues behind the scenes, but do recognise the point around the grid constraints in some locations and the commercial viability of those. So we'll certainly work in that respect to resolve those as they crop up on where we're making the installations. In terms of the hydrogen, I don't think the market is quite there yet. The focus at the moment is very much on electric vehicles, which is why we're investing in that sense. But I'm sure as the market evolves, things may change in the future, but at the moment we just don't know.
Just very briefly responding to both those points. On the first one, I mentioned in my introduction the important role that we have to play in encouraging other parties to get involved in this, and I completely agree. I think that's where the Borough Council has a particularly strong role is to work with housing associations, for example, to make sure that we can install EV chargers on their land. And equally as well, as a Borough Council, we are perhaps not always driven by the same commercial constraints that a private operator may be. So this is why us playing a role in terms of installing our own EV chargers is more important. I echo the point Mark's made about hydrogen vehicles. I think if you compare the number of hydrogen vehicles that are currently on sale, the number of models of hydrogen vehicles compared to the number of electric cars, it only seems to be heading in one direction. But again, as I said at the start, this is an evolving document. If we suddenly find that there's a requirement for hydrogen cars and EV charger, EV cars demand disappears, then we will look at adapting this. There'll still be a legacy of EV cars that we would need to help maintain for the foreseeable future, but we probably would cut back on our investment if it looks like the market is heading towards hydrogen.
Thank you. David? Oh, sorry, Emma.
Sorry, I just wanted to answer some questions on the community centres. As a rule, we'd try and pick a site that would not have any constraints in terms of access. However, in some areas, the community centre is the only pocket of land that we would have any access to in terms of installations. So we would look to pop them there in the short term and try and then to see if there's any commercial opportunities elsewhere for private operators to put them in the local area. We are trying to put them in every ward at the moment for this year, and hopefully we'll do that by April. Beyond that, we'll just be looking at the easily accessible community centres, and those where there's been a record from Hampshire that they store information on people that have requested charge points over our borough. So we'd be looking at those where there's interest. We'd look at those first. Okay.
Thank you. Now, David. Sorry, thanks.
Thanks, Chair. I suppose I should make a declaration first. I'm a proud owner of an EV vehicle, so I just want to get that on the record. Two comments from me. First one, obviously commending the report that's laid before us, both selfishly, because being an EV driver, I do have that range fear sometimes. But I think it's a great thing for the borough and for our residents. The two comments I have then, so the first one is about maintaining accessibility. I think there's most probably a little bit of work just joining up with our on-street traffic enforcement, because being an EV driver, I think the first thing you'll notice is there seems to be a community of people who like abusing the car parking spaces. So they'll pitch up and they'll stick the plug in. They won't sign up to actually charge, and they'll wander off and think they've got free parking for 2 hours. So perhaps something just to make sure we've got that. I'm sure you'll have that on board, Andy. And then the second one is getting onto a point of Joe's comment about the gentleman in the flats, and whether or not, as an authority, we can explore some of the schemes that are opening now for Lamp Street charging and bollards. I know Shell Recharge in particular with their offshoot Ubricity work quite closely with local authorities where they'll obviously install the charge point at some of these locations that are perhaps harder to put public points in. I think that might be something worth looking at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, just in terms of the on-street charge, so as of this year in April, we don't facilitate any of the on-street enforcement. That's done by Hampshire County Council. In the short term, they aren't enforcing in terms of TROs, so there isn't a specific EV charge point, but at sites where there has been impact, as you said, where people are taking the mickey slightly on where they can park, those noted they tend to be putting in TROs so that they can be enforced later down the line. But we work very closely with Hampshire, so for instance, Feathers Yard is actually on street, but the charge points are off street. So we own the charge points, but Hampshire own the land. So they enforce the bays, but we enforce the charge points themselves. So we work very closely with them to tell them when somebody's in a charge, they're not charging on the charge point when they should be, or they've overstayed their welcome of the timing. So that's how we're working on with the on street. But yes, I'm aware of those issues.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions? No? Oh, go on then, Sean, far away.
I was speaking to Andy earlier, actually. I've had a few comments about the parking, the EV parking spaces near the Ridgeway in Buckskin. There's 4 parking bays and EV charge points. And some of the residents are a little annoyed because obviously it's taken up quite a large percentage of the regular spaces because it is quite tight in that little space there. So I think just going forward, I think we need to be sort of concerned about taking away too many spaces and looking to see whether sort of if there's like a verge that can be extended or anything like that, so that people aren't risk constrained, because they have had people just parking there because there's nowhere else to park, especially if there's an event going on in the community centre. So, and then that doubly frustrates people if they do turn up with an EV because they've got a nice car in there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Andy. Do you want to?
Yeah, no, thanks, Sean. I think that's an absolutely valid point, and so that we've discussed with the team here. There isn't an easy solution, but there is good practice that we can follow. So one is we try and look for demand in the community before we install EV chargers. I think Emma mentioned that there's this map that Hampshire County Council run. I think it might be, if I can ask Emma, if we can perhaps include that in the members' newsletter next week. So you can share that with your residents and say, if there is demand for EV chargers in your ward, let us know on this map, and we can then use that information for planning future EV locations, because it means that we can hopefully then marry the supply with demand. Secondly, I think we have in the past and we will continue in the future to consult with ward members where we are installing EV chargers, and we'll take your comments into account. And thirdly, your suggestion about building additional spaces, I know of one scheme that we're currently working up, which we're doing exactly that. So there's limited parking there, so we're looking at installing an EV charging bay, so an EV charger, and therefore and we're looking at building an extra EV parking bay, so the net number of spaces for traditional car owners remains the same.
Thank you. Is that it now? So the recommendations was to make comments to the portfolio holder and ahead of consultation. So I think that's it done now, isn't it? So
yeah, that's been very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we move on to item 7. Thank you very much. Thank you. Item 7, Town Centre Strategy and Basingview Update. Annalie's going to give us a introduction to the paper. Chair over here, isn't there? Welcome Sarah and Olga to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to members of this committee. Really pleased to be here and to hearing your comments in relation to this presentation. Firstly, as you all know, civic pride is one of our central guiding principles as the administration. In the first 12 months of our new administration, we have focused heavily on rebuilding relationships with town centre partners to understand their issues and what they want to see to improve the area and what our residents want to see. The main focus of the work to date has been to stimulate improvements for the top of town and support our local businesses. However, we need a coordinated strategy which needs to genuinely add up and not just deal with selling sites to the highest bidders. There needs to be a coherent approach. Over many years, there have been many strategies. I've been a councillor for nearly 16 years, and we've seen them proposed, and in particular in relation to the top of town. We have seen some progress on Basingview, but there is a lot to do. And there's a welcome new investment in plant, which sets the positive possibility of what can be achieved. It's also good to see investment coming into Festival Place as new retail and leisure offers are being confirmed. There is a good story to tell about our local economy and how we are the productivity powerhouse of our region. As a new administration, what we want is an action-oriented approach to the town centre. We don't want any more glossy consultants' reports. We want to focus on what can genuinely be done to improve the top of town and to create a sense of momentum. We can see new lets and businesses opening, and our high street compares favourably against other towns, but that's not enough for us. And we welcome the investment, but we are ambitious and never complacent. It has to be flagged that we only own 14 units at the top of town. So realistically, at this juncture, public realm is really our central focus. We are listening to businesses, residents and visitors, and we understand the desire for continued improvements that are visible and tangible. And our proposed focus moving forward is to implement the exciting master plan and ensuring that the Haymarket and the Anvil, which are both very close to my heart, are anchors at the heart of major redevelopment. So this simple update from officers gives hopefully the committee a snapshot, mostly reflecting on the current approved strategy from the previous administration. We propose to undertake works to develop actions we can implement, both short-term improvements to the look and feel of the top of town and longer-term work on sites which can tangibly enhance the town centre. The opportunities on Basingview need to be realised, and we will continue to support Festival Place as a key partner. All of this has a central driver in mind. We want the best for our businesses, we want the best for residents' experiences, and we want to attract visitors. We have a clear vision, we have a can-do approach, and we really welcome investment. And so with that introduction in mind, I'd like to hand over to our officers who have been working extensively behind the scenes, and hopefully you'll enjoy their presentation. Thank you very much.
Do you want to fire away then?
Okay.
Oh, we'll do questions at the end after the presentation, yeah? That's good.
Sorry. Mr. Chairman, would you mind if I ask Councillor Laura James, also because the two of us are involved extensively on this, if she could speak now as opposed to the officers? Is that all right? That's really kind. Thanks.
Thank you. No, I'm along as a double act here, but really just to say support in relation to the comprehensive work that Onali is doing, Councillor Cubitt is doing in relation to the town centre, is about the public realm and the work that is going on there, and really to give you a flavour of all of that's going on. It's mentioned in the report, in the actions, but the focus from us as a cabinet is about the fabric of the town centre, as well as the additional comprehensive work that's going on in relation to it. So if we just sort of run through some of the things that we're doing, and this isn't exhaustive, but we've got a new weed spray contract, and we're spraying the town centre. We're also looking to the jet spraying that's going on at the moment, and you'll see that work's going on and has started, and that's going to be carrying on throughout the town centre. You might have seen the actual on the video on the Facebook page of the council. I think it went viral. There were so many. I think it was over. Was it 40 or 40,000 people watched it? So somebody was enjoying it. I mean, it's incredible. But in relation, we're also looking to remove all the gum on the pavements, and the contractor will be working on that and coming up Woke Street and Church Street. There's a big programme of work that's gone on in the planting in the front of the station. We're looking to paint the ramp that goes up to the car park with a mural. We've got new lighting in front of the train station, and we've improved the planting that comes up from the steps to the side of the station there, so it's much safer. And we're working with the Safer by Design team there. There's all of the furniture within the town centre we're looking at, like there's a horrid phone box along London Road that we're looking to remove. It's quite unpleasant. There's some maps outside of the Haymarket that need replacing, that have seen their day. Where we pollarded the trees to the side of the town centre, the festival place. The other two had nests in, so we had to wait for that. And they were in great need of having that work done. We're looking at some lights on the square outside of McDonald's in the trees. We've varnished and made good the seating around those trees. So there's a massive amount. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that are going on. We've also reduced the liability in relation to street furniture outside of the businesses throughout the town centre. It was 10 million, is now 5 million, making it more possible. We're trying to create a culture, a cafe culture, and that's what the businesses said that they wanted, and so working with them, we did that straight away. The work that we're doing in relation to taxis, we've given them a grant in relation to EV taxis, and we saw the first one on the streets this week, which is exceptional, and we've got the ability to have 17 of those taxis that are going to be going around the town centre. We've also working with the other companies, the taxi companies, to encourage a greater number of providers, taxi drivers, that will be supporting the nighttime economy. And clearly that was something that the businesses wanted, and residents were telling us as well.
There's a grant?
Sorry?
The grants as well?
Yeah, so we've got a grant now and people will be able to apply for that, not just the town centre, but also in relation to villages as well, to shop fronts, to improve your shop fronts, and also internal fixtures and fittings. And what we're looking at is, so where there's things are looking shabby and needing to be improved, there's a £10,000 grant, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and so that will make a massive difference. And we're looking at a colour palette that they will be able to apply throughout the town centre.
And for new shops as well.
Yes, yeah, new shops as well. We've also boosted the weekend staff. We've got 2 additional weekend staff for street cleaning, and they've got a new bit of kit in relation to a sweeper. So there's a massive amount of investment going on within the town centre in relation to the public realm, and that's what the businesses said they wanted, that's what residents want, and I hope you start to see an improvement. One thing we did as well, and I think it's we painted, because county weren't prepared to do it, all of their painted railing throughout the town centre is looking really tired. And so what we've done is we've painted some of it with their agreement to do it, because they wouldn't do it. And then in October, we have the whole area mapped out as what's going to be painted. And we will be removing those wonderful baskets on the railings in October. And all of those railings will then be painted. So I'm hoping that you're starting to see those improvements in relation to the town. And I'd just like to say a really big thank you to the officers who have worked really hard on this. And I think, thank you for that you've done and in bringing this together and their commitment to seeing these improvements. So thank you.
So, and if I could just...
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up, Councillor Laura James has been outstanding, and her team, because of course it's 2 different teams, it's the Regen team and it's also the Tom Payne team, have really dialogued well, and it's a real demonstration of officers constructively working together. And Laura and I have spent many an hour walking around the town and various places, and we've been the bane of probably some of the officers' lives, taking photographs of vape stickers on dustbins and
that was one. That was
and comparing the dustbins to what they look like in other towns nearby. So we're really excited by and thank you very much, Councillor Laura James, as well. Thanks.
Thank you for the update. Do you want to give us?
Great, thank you, Chair. Okay, well, good evening, members, and thank you, Councillor Cubitt and Councillor James, for that glowing intro that I'll try not to repeat too much of. Okay, so my name's Sarah Good. I'm the relatively new, 3 and a bit months in, head of major projects and development. And this is my colleague Olga Blinova, who is our development manager, who's been working on the town centre in Basingview. We were asked to attend this evening to provide an update on some work that we've undertaken to date, the current projects, and some meanwhile uses that are being considered by officers to progress the delivery of the Basingstoke Town Centre strategy and to improve Basingview. We've produced quite a comprehensive report, which is obviously for noting, but I've actually written down, we're delighted to come along this evening and be given the opportunity to give you an update via a relatively brief, if I ever stop talking, presentation, which pulls out some key points from the presentation, from the accompanying report, sorry. So earlier this year, as you know, Cabinet members, supported by officers, have held an informal meeting with the top and town businesses, as well as doing walkarounds, to enable the owners to share their views on improvements that they'd like to see throughout the town centre. And that's played quite a large part in developing an action plan that Olga will walk you through later on. Also understand that Cabinet members are going to be continuing those listening events with local businesses. So delivering improvements to the public realm of the town centre, as you've heard from both the councillors, forms part of the Cabinet's short-term regeneration objectives. And the report includes the full list of the action plan that we've pulled together. And that action plan does work across a lot of departments across the council, so we're trying to get more bang for our buck working together. The presentation will run you through the action plan themes that were identified by the stakeholders, along with some of the activity both that we've already completed and currently is underway. So in terms of longer term objectives of the town centre strategy, there's been significant due diligence being undertaken, including enabling activities to ensure deliverability of the master plan. Individual schemes are going to take time to develop. This will need a partnership approach. As already mentioned, the council has fragmented ownership across the town centre. Equally, it'll be essential that we get the right partner who can bring significant investment to fund the major development on the scale of the strategy that the strategy envisages. So, focusing on the land that the council does own and opportunities for partnership working, Cabinet are considering the town centre strategy and how a holistic approach could deliver the vision if areas are packaged together as opportunities. In terms of Basingview, the council, obviously being the freeholder, has a key role in promoting and stimulating new investment in the area, and the presentation will set out some of the recent developments and some future opportunities, as well as some meanwhile uses that are being considered and progressed by the team. So to briefly summarise what you've got in the paper, regeneration is a longer term endeavour. It requires a strategic vision, as well as commitment and significant investment by external parties. The council, of course, has a key role to play in that as an enabler and as a facilitator through not only just developing policies that are going to support regeneration, but also in cultivating partnerships and community engagement, whilst being cognizant of the wider economic market conditions. Right, we've got around 20 slides to share with you, and they're covering both the town centre and Basingview. The presentation is actually, believe it or not, quite short. There's no more instructions. So if I can ask you to keep any questions to the end, we'll make sure we've got plenty of time at the end to come back to them. So going straight into the town centre strategy, at the end of 2022, the master plan developed by Allies and Morrison was adopted by the council, highlighted 8 areas across the town centre that would benefit from regeneration. The master plan was very much a high-level document, and it set out the vision and the art of the possible for Basingstoke. Initially, the top of town area was identified as the priority, and officers have been working with members and key stakeholders to identify both short-term deliverables along with undertaking a lot of due diligence work to underpin longer-term ambitions of the master plan. And at this point, I will finally hand over to Olga to take you through some of the examples in more detail.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So, as mentioned in the previous slide, the short-term deliverables are key to underpinning the medium and the longer-term due diligence work that we do. So, we have a thriving town centre, and we're determined to build on this, making sure that pride and place are at the centre of our work. Keeping our public realm clean, safe and tidy is fundamental to the economy of our town centre. So to this extent, we've refreshed the area opposite the station, this being a gateway to the town. So works included cleaning, weeding and cutting back the landscaped area, which improved the overall look and feel of this key thoroughfare. We have also been working with our members and the key stakeholders, as councillors have suggested, Sarah has mentioned, to develop an action plan for the top of the town area, which I will come on to next. So the action plan has been pulled together from discussions and the walkabouts that we've had with our portfolio holders and officers, and of course the stakeholder engagement sessions that we held with the top of the town businesses earlier this summer. It covers a variety of themes as shown on the slide here, from street cleaning to, and decluttering to reviewing licensing policies and tackling antisocial behaviour. The actions are a mix of business as usual works, which have been targeting specifically, such as the bin cleaning, as well as new activities that we will be undertaking going forward. The work is a collaborative effort here between all the various teams at the council, such as the street cleaning team and the community safety teams, for example. And we're also working closely with key stakeholders such as Hampshire County Council and Festival Place to help us improve the area. The regeneration team are coordinating this work between all the various parties, and some of the new activities that we've been undertaking so far will form a part of the business as usual going forward, which will contribute to the range of services that the council provides for its communities. So a lot of work has actually already been completed. So for example, picking up on the street cleaning, planting and the decluttering themes of the action plan. You can see here a list of actions and accompanying photos showing what already has been completed. We've been liaising really closely with the other teams to ensure that actions such as cleaning the bins of vape stickers are incorporated into the wider business as usual scope, cleaning our bins looking fresh and clean all the time, after this kind of initial targeted has been completed. Continuing with the street cleaning theme, we've worked really closely with Hampshire County Council to obtain the necessary approvals to carry out the work on the public highways, such as repainting the railings and cleaning of the footpaths, as you can see on the photos here. Picking up on the themes of the planting improvement, our teams have installed some really great flower displays around the town centre to help brighten up the areas. And under the licensing theme of the action plan, the council has recently made changes to the licensing requirements to make it easier for businesses to apply for outside seating. We're really keen to encourage cafe culture at the top of the town, and this work picks up on the feedback that we've received from the local businesses to have more flexibility on outside seating, which we're really keen to support. Jet washing has been a new activity, and we're undertaking the targeted deep clean and gum removal of key thoroughfares in our town centre. So following an extensive procurement exercise, works have commenced in August, and some of the areas have already been completed. And as we mentioned, the video of the jet washing has recently been posted on Facebook, which received some really positive feedback and generated about 46,000 views in a really short period of time. So we're not stopping there. There's much work currently in progress, which is all linking back to the themes outlined in the earlier presentation. So working with the economic development team, we're going to be launching a grant scheme at the end of this month to encourage business participation and stimulate investment in the top of the town premises. So what we hope here to achieve is that it will support the cafe culture and the variety of trading, as well as bring some of the vacant units back into use. The market is a really key element to the top of the town offer, and we're currently reprocuring the provider, and we hope to finish that in autumn. The council is seeking to diversify the market offer, introduce more local produce, and increase the overall footfall to the top of the town, which we hope will further benefit our local economy and the businesses in the top of the town area. Of course, working with key partners such as Hampshire is really key to delivering some of the improvements, and we're looking at the moment to get year-round decorative lighting features at the top of the town. So this would be building on the success that we've got in terms of Christmas lights that will be going up in October, and then the Let's Glow Festival that follows once Christmas is over. And of course, everyone's favourite, we will continue with the jet washing and the ever-popular videos they seem to produce.
Weekly jet washing videos.
So now all of that work is part of the short-term action plan, is key to supporting the existing activities that are going on around the town centre and our events programme that we run each year, and some of the newer ones such as the Listen Up music event, which will be happening in autumn. So the public realm improvement work provides a clean and inviting environment for all of our residents, businesses and visitors that support and participate in these events and that attract a growing number of footfall to the area each year. It's also the foundation of our more medium and longer term regional activities, which I will come on to next. So here is an example of what the master plan hopes to achieve at the top of the town. The idea is to maximise the available land to deliver a mixed-use development with over 2,000 square metres of office and retail space and about 160 new residential units. Probably worth reiterating here that the master plan focused on the art of the possible, and the significant amount of due diligence work needs to be undertaken to better understand the constraints and opportunities of the site and what's actually deliverable. So this principle applies to all of the development areas mentioned in the master plan, not just the top of the town. So in parallel to all the short-term activities that we've been undertaking, we've also been doing a lot of due diligence work on the master plan proposals for the top of the town to test out the concept ideas it presents. So here you can see the type of the due diligence work that we've undertaken. So aware of the current nationwide shortage on utilities, much of the initial work has been around understanding the capacity of the various infrastructure in the area and assessing the requirements and the need for the top of the town in the wider town centre areas. Transport, another key element. For example, the top of the town master plan proposes changing the new road to a two-way street, and of course that needs us to liaise closely with Hampshire. And we've been doing that to reflect on these proposals and understand the opportunities and constraints that such a change would present, not just to the town centre but the wider road network as well. Moving on to the car parking, the master plan sought to maximise the development potential of the surface car parks. Of course, this would result in the loss of the parking spaces, and that's why the car parking strategy was prepared to support the master plan. The strategy identified additional actions that would be required to support the delivery of any development, and additional work is underway to assess the current car parking demand and the future need to determine what the most appropriate approach to car parking in the town centre is, and that will advise any future development proposals, particularly to support the delivery of the more affordable housing in the town centre. So, as mentioned before, the master plan is high level out of the possible overview of the development areas, and key part of the work we've been doing is to review the proposed quantum of the residential, commercial and the retail space at the top of the town, and to make sure any development that's proposed is right-sized and has the right mix of uses that would enhance rather than hinder the existing provisions in the town centre. So a good example of this work is the retail market analysis that's been done, and that concluded that there was too much of the commercial and retail space that was included in the master plan, and that greater focus should be on homes being part of the town centre offer. And understanding the likely capacity of the development and the mix of uses will enable us to review the feasibility, viability and the optimal phasing options for the site. And of course, underpinning all of this work is the land assembly and ownership review of the area, so highlighting the opportunities, constraints and any requirements for potential land assembly to enable future development. So what's next? Due diligence work applies to all of the areas in the master plan, not just the top of the town, and we're currently in the process of considering other sites that fall within the council's ownership. Prioritisation of these areas would depend on several external factors, such as feasibility and the viability, and of course working closely with all of our partners. We'll also need to consider how a holistic approach could deliver the vision if areas were appropriately packaged as opportunities, and the key to this will be securing the right development partner as well. At the same time, of course, we'll continue to progress the short-term actions of the top of the town, such as the public realm improvements work that we've discussed earlier in the presentation, because that does underpin all of the work that's going on in the background as well.
Back to me briefly. She promises. So Basingview is a 65-acre town centre key employment zone. Currently, Basingview is home to more than 100 national and international businesses with around 4,500 people working at the park. Council owns the freehold and a series of long leasehold interests, and obviously must play a key role in helping to promote and stimulate new investment and work with existing leaseholders to bring opportunities to the market. Where appropriate, Council also needs to take direct intervention, and an example of that is Farnham House, which is currently the headquarters of the AA, but the council has obviously negotiated a lease surrender to secure the landmark site, which is totalling 7.8 acres for redevelopment. So once again, I'll hand over to Olga to go through the detail.
Thank you, Sarah. So, as Sarah said, as the freeholder, the council is highly supportive of any private development within Basingview, and we have successfully negotiated lease re-gears with a number of private developers, and you can see here on the slide the recent collaborative successes that included. So, for example, the refurbishment of the Grade 2 listed building called Plant, which was formerly known as Mountbatten House, that will be completed this autumn, and then the AA will be relocating into the space, which better meets their office needs in this modern environment and keeps them in the borough as well. Package Living is awaiting the outcome of their planning application for Viewpoint, and that scheme will propose around 370 new homes, residential amenity space, ground floor, public realm, and important activation at street level. And of course, the recently opened Grosvenor House has been refurbished into Grade A office space by Arena, who have a number of investments in the business park, and this project has recently been shortlisted for a design award, which is quite exciting news. So there are still a number of development opportunities available in Basingview. We're looking to package some of the development sites to maximise Grade A office developments once the market conditions and funding availability improves. Focusing on some of the more immediate needs of the area, we're very aware that there is a lack of parking, which is a barrier to growth for existing businesses and for attracting new businesses to Basingstoke. To this extent, we're introducing more car parking on a temporary or meanwhile basis to stimulate growth and close the parking gap. So we've resurfaced the existing car park at Gresley Road, which is also known as Plot W2, to improve the parking facilities there. And we've also redeveloped a part of Plot W1 to provide additional 100 car parking spaces. We've also undertaken some viability assessments to bring a multi-storey car park in Basingstoke. However, this is quite challenging due to the existing construction costs. We're also considering alternative meanwhile uses other than car parking, which would enhance Basingstoke and bring additional revenue to the council. And in addition to the above, we're in high-level discussions with the university to potentially attract a higher education campus either to Basingstoke or the town centre. So the map you can see here shows the remaining development plots in green. Any future development been considered in a context of affordable housing, higher car parking demand, and making sure we've got the right quantum of development land that's retained as employment use, as Basingstoke is designated as a primary employment space in the local plan as well. So, as I mentioned in the previous slide, Plot W1 has been partially redeveloped to bring 100 additional car parking spaces. So that's, if you can see it, next to Plot Z, and then Plot W2 is the triangle land sort of at the top of that. So that's been refurbished to improve the existing car parking facilities. We're also considering Plot K for potential additional temporary car parking, and the feasibility work underway at the moment for that. And finally, one of our biggest plots, Plot Z, right there at the end, which is currently home to the AA and is also known as Phantom House, is under review to determine its redevelopment potential once the AA vacate that site and go into the plant. And feasibility work for that is also currently underway, potentially with Plot W1 together. So, enabling activities all underpin our work across town centre and Basingstoke, and there are a range of them, as you can see here. So we're supporting our planning colleagues through the local planning Regulation 18 and Regulation 19 update work. As landlord, we have commissioned an update to the intensification study and the tall building study, which will support the local plan. Understanding the constraints and the capabilities of the infrastructure networks is key to phasing all of our developments and assessing its deliverability. And we're continuously working with all of our consultants to make sure that up-to-date information is available for each of our sites. Highway-related matters, of course, they're managed in a collaborative approach with Hampshire County Council as the highway authority in the borough. And of course, the stakeholder engagement is fundamental to all of our work. So as I mentioned earlier, we're continuously engaging with Hampshire. We're also regularly in contact with Festival Place, Network Rail, South West Rail, a number of registered providers, developers and landowners, as well as our local residents and businesses who are at the heart of everything that we do. And finally, just in summary, we will continue to work in collaboration with internal and external partners on key projects across the town centre and Basingstoke to encourage growth, investment in the area, and to find solutions to utility and infrastructure issues and other barriers to the development. So thank you very much for listening, and we will take now any questions or comments. Thank you.
If I could just say before questions that I think hopefully as members you can pick up from really that outstanding presentation. Thank you, Olga, and thank you, Sarah. I think that was very comprehensive, that there's an enormous amount going on behind the scenes. And we look forward to hearing any questions.
Thank you for that excellent presentation. Open up to questions from members. Sean?
Regarding the street cleansing and the planting improvements, I think the actions that have already taken place, I think, to be honest, have really boosted the feel-good factor. I think I've seen them firsthand, the planting and everything, and actually witnessed firsthand the extreme jet washing outside the Anvil when I was working there on the Sleeping Beauty Panto, but that's another story. But I noticed on the street cleansing section that there isn't any long-term actions. So I've just considered, obviously, it's important to keep on top of the cleaning and the improvement and the maintenance for the top of the town area. So shouldn't there be long-term actions going forward?
Thank you, Councillor Dillo. That's a good point, and I think the key to this is embedding it into business as usual. You know, we've had a bit of a blitz, tidied up. We've got that pride in place. You know, it's the fundamental core basics of what we should be doing. So what we now need to do with the cleansing team is make sure that this translates into business as usual now. Regeneration, you know, are very much taking ownership of this and trying to coordinate it, but that is certainly the intention, and we're picking that up with the portfolio holder and the teams.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add a little bit to Sean's comments there. I think we've all noticed the sterling hard work going on in town, and I think we all have a pride in our borough, so absolutely commendations on that. Thank you very much for all that effort that's going on. I just want to move on what Sean said about the long-term plans, because I know this new administration's, as Councillor Cubitt said, focus absolutely first 12 months was on that public realm action plan, and I believe it started in August 2023 with the train station improvements. But it's 12 months in, and what I'm interested in is what is the next step. And I'm not seeing that in the 12 months. That's not to say the work hasn't been done. Absolutely, I'm interested in when that happens, and I'd be interested in a presentation for that. A second comment as well is some of the report is just a little bit. When I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, has it been done or is it being done? And if I use just one example, is the cafe culture, because I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think we should encourage that at top of town. On the delivery plan on the website, it talks about to support the thriving cafe culture, make it easier for businesses to have outdoor seating by reducing the level of public liability insurance required. Then in the report, we actually see that it's encourage cafe culture through changes in licensing policy. So it doesn't actually talk about the public liability insurance. I've actually had a look at our policy. It doesn't mention public liability insurance. But then when it talks about the following activities have already been completed, changes to licensing to allow outside seating for food and beverage businesses. So I just want to know, has that been done? Is that still a problem? And how can we improve that? Thank you.
So yeah, in terms of the public liability insurance and all of these all came out of a meeting that the leader and officers and Councillor James and myself had. So we had a really good meeting with all of the local businesses very early on and said, listen, we know you're a bit upset about a whole host of things, and we'd like to hear what because you're the best people to tell us where your problems are, where your blockages are, because what we want is a really buzzy area. And cafe culture is something that we've all said and mentioned for many years. And of course, one of the first things they mentioned at that evening meeting was that they were having a real difficulty because most companies' insurance covers for 5 million. But our council was requiring 10 million cover if they had outside seating. So Councillor James went back to licensing immediately after that business listing exercise. And we established very, very quickly that we could reduce the requirement, and that 10 million versus 5 made a huge difference because it was an exception at 10 and a normal at 5. So that's happened. That happened almost instantly. We changed the requirement. So that's a good story. And as Sarah said, all of the good actions are being incorporated, hopefully going forward as business as usual. In terms of thriving cafe culture, another thing that came out of the business listening exercise, and we've got another one on the 25th of September, and it was a really well received, and we got some fantastic ideas out of it. Was since then one of the local businesses has invested in the old post office, and there's going to be a really exciting activity going forward there. We've been approached by jazz and blues band that would like to access venues. They've had difficulties going in the past accessing venues, and we really want to enable and facilitate what commercial operators want and what residents want, and hopefully they'll marry. So that's the story with the public realm. The public realm short term was part of the master plan, and the top of town was part of the master plan. In terms of the other stuff that Councillor McIntyre that you talk about, there's actually, and I hope you picked up on Sarah and Olga's touching of it, there's an enormous amount of activity going on behind the scenes across the board in relation to the master plan. And a lot of the original strategy had to be tested and be evidence-based, and Olga made reference to that. And in fact, as an administration, very probably we're going to change the chronology, the sequencing of events, because one of the principal problems is land assembly, and we only own 14 units. So we can have aspiration about what we want, but if you don't own the land, you're going to talk about it ad nauseum without actually being able to implement. So we're going to change the chronology and the sequencing of the master plan, and bits of the master plan will change over time. But you know, it's a huge and incredibly exciting agenda, and but it's very strategic, and we have been meeting up with officers, and very definitely the way forward will be with a joint venture, and it will be with a significant major corporate player that will be implementing what we will be seeing, which will be a very exciting Basingstoke going forward. Would you like to add anything to that, Sarah?
No, I think you've highlighted, you know, there is a huge amount of due diligence behind the scenes. It is around testing and challenging. You quite articulately presented the top of town and some of the challenges we've faced there. You've highlighted on the land ownership issue, but also getting into the details of the constraints, how deliverable, you know, some of these concepts and these ideas are great, and sort of 80% of the master plan would be absolutely fantastic to deliver. We now need to focus on what are those deliverable bits. And I think, you know, whilst we've focused on one area, so much of that due diligence around utilities, infrastructure, land ownership's constraints actually rolls out. So we're ahead of the game now, or in a very good position to now look at what other priority areas we're going to bring forward. And then, as Councillor Cubitt said, engage with the market and take those forward.
I mean, one of the things that is essential is for flow between all the various constituents of our town has to be improved. Now, one of the problems with the master plan is, and you know, you see it in Winchester. There recently, literally this year, there's been a hideous building built on a car park that would belong to the council, and it hasn't improved the realm. It has exacerbated car parking problems in Winchester, and so the short to medium in the master plan was to build on our car parks, and we want as an administration for there to be a much more cohesive strategy, and which is why we've commissioned the car parking strategy. And you know, we're not just going to build blocks on every single car park, because that's not the way we're going to do it. We want it to be a buzzy, thrivey, flowing, cohesive links between the top of town, Festival Place, and even, you know, the exciting things that are going on at Basing View. Sarah and I have travelled far and wide in the country to meet various parties that we're working with on various projects that we're working with, and you know, for example, on the packaged living, we drove up to Milton Keynes to see the product in the flesh, because it's much easier when you've seen the real product working and operating, and it was fantastic. It blew my head away. It was just amazing. I can imagine for 20 to 30-year-olds be an incredible place to live, with concierge and all that stuff. So there's so many exciting things. It's just there needs to be this overlay, the macro overlay, which is going on.
Yeah, just a quick one. It sounds fantastic, and I know there's lots of hard work going on. I guess that the point is just bring us along on the journey. It'd be interesting to see that shaping up. New administration, it's entirely within your gift and ability to change the master plan as you want to, based on the information that you're receiving. No problem with that whatsoever. But it would be good to be brought along and see that and see the timescales when these things are getting. Because I think we all want the best for our town and borough, right? That's what it is. Thanks.
Thank you for that, David. Laura?
Just going to pick up on the cafe culture. After the meeting, we actually met with some of the businesses and went to see what their aspiration was in relation to having seating outside of their business. And there were some constraints to that in relation to some of the street furniture that's there outside of their businesses. And so, again, we've got to look at how we can move that and it's for it still to be attractive and that there will still be seating. And seating is very much an important part of a town centre, but yeah, so we're working very closely with those businesses that want to have seating outside, and again, it's not going to happen overnight because in relation to the costs to some of those businesses. The other thing I didn't mention is that the policy, the real sort of push that we're doing in relation to graffiti. So, we're putting the emphasis on businesses. If we're going to work with you, you've got to work with us. And it's not acceptable that your buildings are covered in graffiti. And so if you remember down by the ex-Debenham, the flatted development down there, it was covered in graffiti. It's now not. It's been painted over. There's some, other areas that have been removed as well. And some are still to remove, like the Royal Bank of Scotland, which is an empty building. So we're wanting something done there. So there's a massive amount of work that we're doing to say this isn't acceptable. And also that we're saying in relation to the seating that's outside of these businesses, that we expect you to keep it of a standard, so in relation to licensing, that we expect these places to look good. And, so there's an expectation that if we're going to work with you and we're going to do these things, that you're going to work with us. And that was really positive in relation to that meeting we had. And, and that was something that we're taking forward.
Thank you. Kate?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. It's a very useful and interesting presentation. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. I've got a couple of queries, whatever. Can we have quality street furniture? So, for instance, I think that's just a good investment. For instance, the stainless steel railings look brilliant how many years after they were installed, whereas the metal ones that have to be painted just look rubbish after 2 years and a few dings. I think it sets the tone and it will attract a higher quality inward investment. So we have to prime pump in that sense to set the bar higher. So that'd be quality street furniture and accessories and so on. Plea for native planting first. I'm not going to be purist about this, but could we please have a consideration about that in our street planting? I think it's excellent you're engaging with local businesses. There's nobody like people who are running their businesses to know what it is they need to improve their offer. I think that's an excellent intervention and I hope that goes from strength to strength. I'd also plead to make sure we keep the heritage assets. So walking along London Road, there are some bits and pieces that do add character to the area, and I'm just going, oh, they're hanging on by their fingernails. Please make sure we keep that, and please do not be going PVC windows everywhere. That's a no. And lastly, a couple more things. Market provider, I think that would be excellent, especially the encouraging the local produce and getting some more a sense of place, regional identity, or more local than region actually, but that whole keep it local, I think it would be a fantastic ad. And then the last one, which is a bit more worrying, which is just how big a risk are the utilities or the lack thereof? We hear frequently about power supply, but we're also water stressed, etc. I mean, how big a fear is or risk factor is that in what is really a very ambitious set of changes that you're proposing?
Thank you, Councillor Tuck. Some really good points there, which and hopefully, so when you read the detail, I think quality hopefully underpins all of the public realm, the street furniture, the decluttering, wanting to get that uniformity and working with the businesses to do that. So quality is very much that golden thread that we want to run through all of this. Totally understand your points around sort of planting schemes native. That's a different type of planting. And we'll obviously be looking at sort of climate as part of that planting theme as well. And then with regards to your last point, which I've forgotten now, sorry, utilities. yes, there are pressures on the utilities network, locally, regionally, nationally. The network and the national grid are working through a time frame on that. So I think we need to look at this in the context of the short, the medium and the longer term developments. And I think some of the developments that are going to come through that will be the larger scale developments where we're going to be working in partnership that will require significant upgrades in the system are more the medium to longer term. So we've got time to work with the national grid, work with those upgrades that we know are programmed in to make sure we're factoring it in. But like everything, early visibility of these issues helps us to then plan and programme that into our development.
Thank you. Is any more members like to make any comments? And Chloe?
Thank you very much. Really interesting. Particularly keen to hear about the long-term master plan, but it is really important to see those short-term immediate actions taking place, because I think that gives everybody that immediate sense that things are changing and happening. Not least on my walk to work this morning, the jet washing was out, and on my walk home from work, I did actually take a picture of the before and after the jet wash. So, it really did, though, highlight the Anvil, which is a really important building, and 30 years ago, if my memory is correct, would have been quite the thing. But looking at it today, and I know today was a pretty grim day, but it is very tired and quite filthy in places. And I wonder, I know there is some mention of the Anvil in the report, but it's very brief, and I wonder specifically on the Anvil and perhaps the Haymarket, what that engagement is with those with the trust there.
Thank you, Councillor Ashfield. Yes, there is ongoing engagement with the Anvil and the Haymarket Theatre as well. Obviously, we have a sort of a landlord-tenant relationship there as well, so there will be contractual obligations in terms of repairs and maintenance that we need to look at. But I think what we've done initially is recognise the importance of the public realm in those areas to support those businesses, and obviously discussions are ongoing, and Councillor Cubitt is a board member representative on the Anvil as well, so we do have that close link in with the Anvil. But yeah, discussions are ongoing there.
Thank you. Joe?
Thank you. Two things. Firstly, they've been looking at the connectivity across the town centre in the LC WIP discussions. I got mainly involved in the rural community ones, as you would expect. So I've lost track of where that is. Hopefully that is added in to the fact that there are sometimes people who perhaps haven't got a car that want to get across town, and it isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do if you can't walk very easily. But obviously I know that you mentioned more taxis coming into the town centre, which probably would help with some of that. But again, we talked about connectivity between people coming into the bus station, for example, and then going out to other parts of the town. The bus station itself, I hope at some point will be definitely replaced or refurbished, because it is quite a desperate place to be at 10 o'clock at night, sometimes after being at council meetings, sitting there waiting for the bus to come. It's not a very pleasant place. Can I ask a question about Basing View? Obviously, that has been owned by the council for many years, and we're very fortunate that we've got it, because obviously that means that we are probably very well placed to have money that other councils don't have. In the past, we had a number of buildings there that couldn't be adapted to modern way living. Obviously, IT and other things, they weren't suitable for converting. And I know over the years we have actually replaced some of them. My question, because I've lost total track of where we are there any of those buildings still left, or have we now actually managed to replace them? Because obviously, if we can't let the buildings, it's a loss of earnings for the council, and obviously that is a major consideration. Obviously, I know that I used to work for the AA, so I know about Fainham House, and obviously that had its issues, which is probably why the AA are moving out. But I think it is something that we need to look at the future to make sure that whatever we're building is future-proof as well. But I'm sure you've considered that. Thirdly, I'd just like to say, I came out the station last week, and all the gentlemen there were in their orange coats, were actually planting and taking all the plants and doing really good work there, which is much appreciated, because you used to not be able to walk up the steps and hold on to the onto the railings because there were all these very spiky plants that came forward. They've all been removed and it's now much more accessible and looks very good. And congratulations on that.
Thank you, Councillor Slimin. So in relation to your Basing viewpoint, obviously the council is the underlying freeholder. There are lots of long leasehold interests on Basing View. There is still some aged stock, at Basing View. There are still some older buildings. They're on long leaseholds. So I think the council takes the opportunity as and when there's developer and investor interest, or that they want to change their building, that through our relationship as landlord and tenant and lease re-gears, we work with them to make sure that we're sort of endorsing and supportive of new Grade A developments coming forward. Obviously, there's the Article 4 in place at Basing View, across Basing View, which obviously protects that change of use to residential. So, that safeguards the position which a lot of towns are in, where they lose aged office stock to poor residential conversions. So I think we do have those safeguards, and it is very much our ambition to promote that mixed use across Basing View, that first and foremost is providing that Grade A quality office accommodation. We know there's a flight to prime. We're witnessing that with the recent lettings on Plant, for example, but there's still work to be done in the market, and we're influenced by external factors on viability on that to bring those forward, but we do keep plugging away at that. The connectivity point is a very good point. Obviously, I think the principles of the master plan do reflect that sustainability, that connectivity, and as Olga's highlighted, we're having ongoing conversations with Hampshire on that network to look at the network in the widest capacity. We've probably focused on car parking a bit tonight, but obviously those conversations are going on in the broadest terms there.
And if I could just add, Mr. Chairman, if that's all right, moving forward on that, the Grade A office space for us is really paramount, because what we want is we all remember what it was like when we had IBM and we were the buzzy place, and it was a top employment area, and everything's got tired, and it is clear, as Sarah alludes to, that flight to Grade A is absolutely essential because of specifically because of the environmental ratings it gives to companies. So we'll get the best companies if we've got the Grade A, because it improves their environmental figures. So that is of paramount importance to the leader and to the administration. Quality obviously is of paramount importance to us. In terms of the bus station, I agree, and I don't know how much detail is in the public domain about where a potential bus station could be situated, but it might not be where it is currently. That's how big and exciting the plans are. But because they're big and exciting, they're going to take a while to get through the sausage machine. And it was a reference Olga made to the fact that the new road, the master plan suggested it be two-way. Again, things like that and flow, all in, provided the interconnectivity is retained. But what we really want all our members to take home tonight, and our residents and businesses, both operating within Basingstoke and further afield, is that we are open to really helping anyone who wants to come in and invest, and we are aspiring to be the best place for a company like Package Living or Plant to come and invest in our borough. And we are really open and positive and excited about the future of the town and what we can offer, and the fact that Festival Place has had its difficulties, and that it is in receivership and is run by creditors at the moment, presents us with a wonderful opportunity for a very big story to happen, a new chapter in the future of our fantastic borough. So I think there's a lot of optimism. The officers are outstanding. We are talking with really significant companies, global companies, and there's so many exciting opportunities out there to make this a very exciting new chapter in the history of Basingstoke.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, Chair. Just something that Councillor Tuck mentioned that just prompted a spark of questioning. It was about Quality Street furniture, because I do know that the top of town is a conservation area, so our licensing policy is quite stringent on furniture that can be used within that. But I guess my question is, with the change for this flowing, sweeping area, because the aim of the original conservation area at the top of town was to enforce the medieval layout of the town, I think, with the market square and the narrow twinings. So I guess my question is, how is that complexity playing out, and how is that shaped in the strategy? Thanks.
So obviously, as part of that strategy work that Allies and Morrison did, they obviously considered the historic layouts and that medieval sort of floor print. And I think, the master plan reflects that. It seeks to maximise, the existing master plan seeks to maximise development on all of the surface car parks rather than fundamentally changing the street layout. I think it certainly reflects the need to improve connectivity, particularly through some of the alleyways and the passageways that we know are fundamental to connecting through. And I think, part of the short-term work that we've done recognising that, it's been around how we can improve wayfinding, again, how we can tidy up and make those alleyways safer, more inviting, cleaner. So that's very much been the focus. But I think the master plan actually did reflect that those kind of historical floor plans for Basingstoke, and didn't fundamentally seek to change that. Within the top of town area, it focused development on sort of surface car parks, really, Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you. Have we got any more members' comments or questions? Oh, Julie?
I just want to say thank you very much for being such a creative and inspirational and dynamic and clever bunch of A-team here we've got. It's really impressive, and I'm really impressed by the amount of things that you've been doing. So thank you very much from all of us. It's great. Well done.
Thank you. I'll echo those comments. Thank you. So the recommendations, we made our comments, and the portfolio holders and officers would take those away, and we get an update in future. Thank you very much. Sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, and can I just pick up on Councillor McIntyre's point? We'll certainly take away that ongoing communication and updating back, and obviously we'll just give a shout out to my members' briefing session on the 12th of September, where it's my opportunity to update. So the more the merrier. It might be a bit repetitive on tonight, sorry, but that
so we don't need to come then.
You don't, of course you do. I do. There's a couple of times a year. That's an opportunity to hear about what we're doing on major projects and development. So please shout out for attendance there.
And for the public benefit, not that anybody ever watches any of these things, but Vaults is no longer in situ in the square, and we would love loads of music. And in Winchester they've got an Ivy and a jazz thing, and wouldn't it be fantastic? I don't know whether there's anybody out there listening, but if we could have an Ivy in Basingstoke on the Market Square, that'd be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Right, now we're on to item 8, Leisure Park Task and Finish Group. Sarah's going to lead on this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was just the opportunity really to bring back to this committee an update on the Leisure Park Task and Finish Group that was set up. Give a bit of a summary as to where we got to and where we go moving forward. The original sort of makeup of the group is set out in the report, and there have been some obviously member changes since this Task and Finish Group was set up. Councillor Joe Slimin was the vice chair on the Task and Finish Group, is obviously still a member. Councillor Fox and Councillor Tuck, who's here this evening. The Task and Finish Group really focused on some set tasks around the Leisure Park Master Plan, and they were asked to review the principles around the linear park and the sort of the master plan concepts around activity clusters and activity loops, and if they felt that was sort of the right the right kind of theme, and how obviously the council going forward could get best value and where it would be best to prioritise its investment. I think the outcome of that task was that the Task and Finish group agreed that the principles of the linear park were appropriate and still remain valid, whilst we're obviously, progressing that. They were also, whilst sort of the current new leisure centre project was out of scope, the Task and Finish group were asked to consider, because the council has committed to providing a new leisure centre, and that will very much be the first phase of development that will be happening on the leisure park, what areas of public realm and improvements should perhaps be prioritised, bearing that in mind. So the Task and Finish group spend quite a lot of time looking at sort of the public realm, highlight proposals, looking at phasing of the public realm, looking at the costs of delivering some of these public realm schemes. And I think in principle felt that it was appropriate to focus sort of council resources and the initial sort of tranche of works around the new leisure centre, alongside that development to enhance that area of the leisure park. And then it would be sensible to switch the attention then to the other end of the leisure park when the existing aquadrome site becomes vacant and becomes available for redevelopment, that the public realm then gets improved in that kind of phased approach. So all of these sort of suggestions were fed back to officers and seemed sort of eminently sensible, and I think we were appreciative of the Task and Finish group's input into that. The other task that they were asked to consider was around a scoring matrix. The purpose of the scoring matrix, which was originally prepared by property consultants JLL, was to help the council and help officers identify suitable occupiers and developers to sort of locate and trade on the leisure park. So we sort of ran through a couple of live examples with the members of the Task and Finish group to show how that matrix would work in real life, and that was really helpful. And as a result of that specific task, we received feedback from the Task and Finish group to add some additional criteria and elements into that matrix so that we can consider additional elements, and these were around sort of a few key areas. What additional benefits would this operator be bringing to the leisure park? So we've included that within the new matrix. Whether this offer was suitable for the town centre, suitable for the leisure park, or suitable for another area of the borough. So not just look at it within the context of the offer that had been presented for the leisure park in isolation, look at it in a wider sense, so we make sure we're getting the right mix of leisure offers across our borough. And then finally, sort of what social value that would contribute, as well as the leisure and the community offers. So all of that's been noted. That was fed back, and those changes have been made to that matrix. So the current position, obviously, following that last meeting of the Task and Finish group we had in April, was obviously there were general elections in May, local elections, and general. We've had both. So with that in mind, there has been a change of membership. The tasks were completed to a point. There were still some areas of tasks that were outstanding, but the recommendation in this report is that because the Task and Finish group is obviously very task orientated, and there have been changes to the membership now, that it's currently recommended to disband the Task and Finish group, and then it would be within the consideration of this committee to consider if they wish to reconvene a Task and Finish group to look at other specific task-related items going forward, and then determine membership at that time. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions, members? Joe?
As the vice chair of that committee, and obviously Abigail's no longer with us, who was the chair, I would say that we found it very interesting to get involved in what was going on, and I think it gave us much more of an insight than you would have if you weren't able to ask the questions that we did and get involved and help to sort some of the issues out and to offer some support. I think it would be interesting, because I know that a number of the people on the committee were on the Task and Finish group were because they were local members, and they particularly have an interest in what is going to happen because they are quite affected with the area. So I'm hoping that the ward councillors will still get quite involved. And I think the one of the outstanding issues that we raised at the very end was the fact of how we connect the leisure park to the town centre for people that don't want to take a car, because we are also talking about connectivity to that too. I know that in the past we did have a little pink bus that used to run up and down and connect people. That's obviously gone. But obviously that was one of the things that I think we mentioned at the end, that it's still something that we don't know that there's an answer to at the moment. But that obviously if there is something coming forward, I'm sure that members will be interested in doing that. But I certainly feel that the Task and Finish group itself hopefully added some interest to what was going on for councils to understand, and also perhaps gave some feedback to the officers. So I would welcome any views of people in the future if they want to join such a group, that there are some benefits.
Thank you. Sean?
I think if a new Task and Finish group was brought into fruition, I'd definitely like to be involved.
Yep, that's noted. So we've got no need to do one at the moment, and the recommendations in front of us is to disband the current one. Is there any more comments? So we're happy with the recommendations to disband this Task and Finish group and form a new one when it comes up. Yep, that's cool, thank you. So move on to item 9, review of work programme. So in your packs you've got a work programme. Are members happy with that particular work programme, Sean?
I was just wondering, at full council July 23, there was a motion proposed and agreed concerning the provision of flooring by sort of housing associations. I'm just wondering whether this committee could look at the proposed actions in the report that was agreed at this committee, maybe the next meeting.
So I've exchanged emails with Jenny Volks on this one. It's not responsibility of this committee now. It's now resident services, and I believe it's going to the chairs and vice chairs of all the committees for it to be put onto the agenda. Yes, that's be our recommendations, that it goes. It's not on this committee's workload anymore, but it's on residents. And I should email Jenny tomorrow notifying her that, and then I'll copy in the chair of the resident services committee to get it on her agenda. Joe?
Yeah, it did come up at what was scrutiny before it became called resources, when they have the housing associations there, and I was allowed to ask the question, which they never answered, unfortunately, about what their change of policy was, if there were any. It wasn't just flooring, it's also the fact that they demand people remove white goods, which are perfectly acceptable, and people have to pay money to either move them or move new ones in. So there's quite a lot of issues that housing associations are doing, which are also costing people money in the cost of living crisis, and also not very environmentally friendly. So I think there are some issues there that housing associations were asked. And I did ask the question at the meeting, but obviously I wasn't allowed to come back and re-ask the question because they didn't answer it. But obviously, hopefully, Jenny said she would pick it up, so hopefully we will get some answers.
So going forward, in October meeting, we've got the local plan update, and then on December we've got progress on climate change and their strategy and biodiversity strategy, and we've got local plan review process and regeneration coming up in the new year. But so we're open to members to get things on the agenda, what's relevant to this committee. So it's an open floor there for you to get it on the agenda. If we don't add anything at the moment, so we'll call it as that then, and then I think that's the meeting closed then. Thank you very much for your attendance then. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.